Mike, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today.
Thank you for having me. Really appreciate being here, Chris.
So, can you give myself and the audience a little bit of background about who you are and what you do?
Sure. I grew up in rural Western New York. Worked in a family business till I was 50, at which point $5 million business that my father and grandfather created went broke. This was
Oh,
2001 due to the burgeoning internet, Amazon, B&H Photo, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And prior to that, I had started developing a not-for-profit or a not-for-profit content management system, open source, that we started building. So I went full time on the internet 2001, realized we needed marketing, developed some SEO skills in the early 2000s, and then started following local in 2004, 2005, because I live very rural area, and to get 250,000 population, I needed 9 Yellow Page books. And when Google came out with local, I joyously threw away my Yellow Page books, satisfying this deep-seated resentment I had against Yellow Page salesmen at the time, who sold using FUD, if you're not familiar with that term, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And so it was a very joyous occasion for me. In 2006, I started writing a blog, and I wondered why nobody else was writing about local at the time. I didn't make my first dollar in local until 2010, 2011, when I started training, but I wrote about it passionately and continue to do so.
local is kind of one of those interesting things. Let me digress for a second. Anyone who's listening probably has no clue what a Yellow Pages is unless they're our age. And when you refer to local, you're referring to local search, correct?
Local digital marketing, the broad world of search, ads, social, video, now TikTok, whatever can create an opportunity for business, whatever can build a brand for local business, whatever can generate traffic for local business digitally is what I call local. So it's a broader definition, but historically it's been local search, and historically for the last 10 years, local search on Google. Prior to that, there were some competitors, but not for the last 10 years.
Yeah, there's,
So.
there's no competitors other than Google. Well, I suppose Yelp and things like that. But so let's talk about kind of the weird things that have happened in local, both on maps and in the search results. I know you had done some writing a number of years ago about things that you have found. Let's talk about some of those.
So you're talking specifically about abuses?
Yes.
Okay. So I think the first large scale abuse I discovered was 2008, when locksmiths, many of them having one location, generated thousands and thousands of fake listings on Google Maps. I have a famous screenshot from 2008 where Manhattan looks like it has the measles. And many of you probably don't even know what measles are, or chickenpox maybe, but little red dots over your face. Maybe it was chickenpox. And Manhattan looked like that. There were dots, 3 dots to every, 4 or 5, 6 dots to every block throughout the whole, borough of Manhattan. And clearly they had figured out that Google local and was generating leads. Google Maps was generating leads, and they wanted to be there. So that was the first case. And subsequent to that, we've seen hijacked listings in hotels where people would insert their phone number into hotel listings to make the commission on the hotel room booking. And most recently, the DOJ, this was just last month, filed a suit against Premier Plumbing in Illinois, where they're accused of having 15,000 fake Google locations with fake reviews. I mean, fake reviews and fake locations often go hand in hand. It's a quick, because reviews impact rank. Spammers are quick to get good, reviews for their fake listings. But we also see it not just in criminal environments, but we see it in lead gen environments, and which are, I guess, criminal in a sense, but not as criminal. They're not out to deceive people. The original locksmiths often did this bait and switch where, and some of the scammers still do this, where they'll get to your home, you think it's an $80 bill to fix the lock, and they break the lock and it's a $500 bill. Otherwise, your front door doesn't lock. So those scams are still occurring, but sometimes it's just lead gen.
So is most of let's talk about kind of like why they're doing this. Are they doing it because when people are looking, let's just use the locksmith example of, I'm looking for a locksmith, I just want to find the guy that's nearest me? and therefore, if there's a location, whether it's real or fake, if there's a locksmith who claims to be just down the street, the human nature is that's the guy I want to use.
Yeah, and obviously they can include pictures and other selling points, but historically, at least for the last 11 years, the Google local algorithm, depending on the volume of locations, was very geography constrained. So even if you, since you have it on the phone, even if you just asked for a locksmith, you didn't even have to add near me. Google would, if there were enough listings, Google would show it in a very small area,
Mm-hmm.
couple, maybe a mile, maybe two, depending on the number of businesses that met that criteria. So obviously, the more locations you have, the more likelihood you have of being found, particularly with the advent of mobile, where Google constrained the geography even more.
And so, were they using fake addresses, real addresses, but just claiming to be there, people's
All the
homes?
above. I mean, Google was very conflicted in the early days of 2007, 2008, whether they should allow businesses that were service area only, didn't have addresses. Um, but clearly they thought that for Google, having more businesses was better because it theoretically satisfied consumer demand, but also gave them more businesses they could pitch AdWords to. And so Google has had this sort of mixed attitude towards service area businesses and had imprecise verification methodologies that would allow businesses to claim for initially, for example, you could do it at a PO box, or then you could do it at a UPS store or whatever. Some of those have failed, but now they use second stories of commercial buildings in Toronto where the landlord is perfectly happy forwarding the mail. Um, so it's a little bit of everything. Whatever the business, whatever these people can figure out how to get by Google,
Mm-hmm.
they try to get by Google. Now, in the last 2 years, Google has switched from postcard verification, which was fairly trivial to scam, to video verification, which usually means you need to be on site. But apparently, I mean, last year, Google sued somebody for having a set that they would move around
Oh,
from
wow.
location to location, and they would show how, they were a locksmith at that location. Google actually sued them. So still, it's possible, and we saw with, like I said, the premier plumbing case, possible to generate 15,000 locations, um,
So clearly, it must, at least for let's carefully how it phrase for real business, like where there actually is a real business. Clearly, it actually, well, does it actually work in that sense? I should say clearly it works. Just because people try to do messy things doesn't necessarily mean it actually gets them customers.
well, I mean, are you asking me if spam hurts real businesses?
Well,
I
no,
mean,
we
it
we
certainly
we,
does.
we know spam hurts real businesses, but was the spam benefit? Was it? Do you know if it was significantly benefiting those that were doing the listing spamming?
One presumes so. And in the case of the recent DOJ case I just mentioned, they claimed $79 million in consumer losses, which equates to $79 million of business gain.
Yeah.
So clearly they were benefiting. Now, Google has, over the last 3 years, attempted to make it harder and slower for a business to achieve takeoff with fake listings.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, now if a fake listing is created, it may not be able to get reviews for several months because that delay increases the cost to the business because they
Yeah.
can't really rank, so they're not getting benefit from it. So Google has attempted to put in place things that slow the process down, but because they do their assessment algorithmically to a large extent and aren't willing to put humans on it, the problem still persists and will persist, and Google will play whack-a-mole and tell you how great they are.
So what are kind of the risks to the consumer in in these sort of things, and how would they know whether it's a real listing or a spammy listing?
Well, Google has what it's called distressed categories. So these are categories that um, usually involve home services, usually, and where the consumer might be at physical risk by having somebody into their home. So, in terms of being able to tell, the first defense is to keep a good Rolodex of your favorite plumber, your
Yeah.
favorite roofer, your favorite garage door opener, and your favorite, water cleanup expert. Any of the home services businesses, duct cleaning, AC repair. You find somebody that's good and hang on to them for the rest of your life. Not use Google to find them. If you do have to use Google to find them, um, check to see if they are in the Better Business Bureau and whether they're legitimate, not just listed with Better Business Bureau, but are a member. That's one test. The other is reviews, but reviews can be fake. And with AI, fake reviews have become very believable. Consumers actually like AI written reviews more than they like human written reviews. So it's very difficult to tell. But if you call and they answer with a generic name. In other words, you're looking for Joe's Plumbing and they answer plumbing. There's a clear indicator that they don't know which listing it's coming from and it's fake. So there's that. Um, you can do a search around the web. I mean, most legitimate businesses that have been in business for a while have reviews at multiple places. That's not a guarantee. It's a risky business out there. I mean, I would recommend that people not use Google to find a plumber.
Hmm.
Is a safe, only safe bet.
So for like those sort of emergency services where something has happened in the middle of the night, there's a water leak, the door broke, the door lock broke, the garage door broke, they need a tow truck. Where would you recommend people go for those resources if they don't already have it in their Rolodex?
Right. So Apple, which uses third parties that do a little more validation, for example, Yelp does more validation than Google. Both require addresses, so they're not non-addressed entities. May or may not surface them. But I mean, Google probably has the best database of good listings,
Hmm.
but the problem is it's hard to tell when a listing is real and when it's fake. So um, you just have to be very cautious. I mean, one, you want to be looking at photos to make sure that the photos show branded trucks and uniformed employees. And when they arrive at your house, that they are uniformed and in a branded truck, not because the way some of these scams work is the person selling the lead doesn't even know who they're sending, and that so that it can't be branded. So I would, if you are forced to use Google, then I would demand one that everything matches up. Two, you've looked at reviews around the net, not just at Google. And three, that you insist on uniformed employees brand on their trucks and it all matches so that you can validate when they come to your home that they are who they say they are.
I guess that's probably a good rule of thumb, even outside of whether you think it's a real listing, a fake listing, a lead gen.
Right.
If you call Joe the plumber to come out and the guy shows up with Express Plumber logo on the outside of his truck, that should be a wait. I didn't call Express Plumber. Who are you and why are you here?
Exactly. And Google, in their recommendations, and speaking with Google, they often recommend that you have customer journey photos on your home service business as validation so that a customer can know what to expect from your company and then you deliver at least that pre-sale um, experience with decent uniforms and branded trucks,
I would assume that these
photos.
days with AI and like one of the challenges with like Google or any platform providing guidance on here's how to make your listing stand out, you've just told the bad people here's how to make your listing look real.
Well, I don't think there are dark networks where people share this information broadly.
Yeah.
There are people who readily experiment and then sell that knowledge. So I don't think it matters whether Google says it or not. I mean, that information, assuming there's enough economic gain, is going to be sold for profit and leveraged for profit. And currently, the way Google works is it's easy enough to get a fake listing that people are doing it for profit. Whether Google tells you what a good listing looks like or not, the reality is that information is out on the net and Google's system is inadequate to protect against it, has remained inadequate since day one. I mean, in my mind, it is a defective product that allows scammers and spammers to be included all too much. And I am on a high horse trying to convince some business that is harmed by this to sue Google on the defective product theory of legal theory rather than facing Section 230, try to sidestep Section 230, which protects Google categorically against abuses of their platform. But it doesn't protect them if the platform is defective. And I think it is.
Yeah. So are there things that so if we have the businesses can go after, there's actions in the businesses that they think they're taking advantage they can do. Do you know if there's any consumer advocacy groups for
I mean, the
local?
only I mean, you can report these abuses to Google. It doesn't, it feels like a dark hole. You can report them to the FTC. You can report them to your attorney general. And if there are enough reports, these organizations will act. And even the business, suing Google is a very long shot lawsuit. So you certainly, unless you have a lot of passion and deep pockets, I wouldn't encourage it because they're going to throw every lawyer they have at it and every dollar. The same avenues are open to the business. And I think in the case of the business and the consumer, publicity makes a big difference. Google has literally a system that tracks bad publicity. And when the publicity gets loud enough, they fix the problem, at least your problem, temporarily, so might get some short-term relief.
Yeah. Let's assuming the best of any entity. Uh, let's assume that they really are trying to fix it. There are just the people that are trying to abuse platforms are always going to, you fix that bug, but I know of 16 other ones that I'm going to take advantage
Right.
of. Or, we've seen that with even just email spam over the years. It used to be, don't include the word free. Don't include,
Right.
these sort of things that used to catch spam filters, and all of a
But
sudden
the
just
email problem
shift
largely
around.
comes from a design of email
Yeah.
that didn't anticipate abuse, and as such, it allowed abuse. And I think the same is actually true with Google, although they have the resources to manage it. They could put humans on it for better moderation. They could build a tighter system. So, yes, spammers continue to push these levers and buttons, but to me, it's incredulous. I'm incredulous still that a business like Premier Plumbing could create 15,000 fake listings and steal 70 million, $79 million from consumers in today's day and age. After 15, 20 years of these abuses, you would think that Google would have fixed it a little better than that.
Do you, speaking of the Premier case, do you know how quickly those, like, what time frame did it take for those listings to start showing up? Do you know?
Yeah, I don't know the history of listings. They started showing up. Well, we started seeing reports on the web from competitors who were being injured by them starting in 2022. Those accelerated till 2025 when we started seeing news reports in Minneapolis and Minnesota, where a lot of these locations were. And then shortly after that, the Minnesota Aid Attorney General and the FTC got involved. The FTC found enough volume of abuse and scale of abuse, they referred it to the DOJ. So sometime between 2022 and 2025 is the likely time frame. Might have had started before 2022.
Yeah, to me, it would, not knowing what goes on inside any large organization like Google, it would seem to me that if an extra 10,000 plumbers showed up or 10,000 locksmiths or 10,000 plumbers showed up, that alone would seem suspicious.
Suspicious.
That like, why is there suddenly, there's only ever been 16 plumbers in my city. Why are there now 40 of them?
Right.
It's
Historically, the reason is that Google looks at their data set globally.
Yeah.
Right. So there's churches and restaurants and bricks and mortar stores that don't change very often. They come and they go at a fairly low volume. So when you assume that there's 250 million businesses globally and 10,000 get added, that's
Yeah.
a very small percentage when you're looking at it globally. But you're right. They should be looking not globally, but locally for exceptions where large scale is occurring in like they do I mean, to mirror their search algorithm, the spam algorithm should be looking locally for large scale within distress categories like the home services and responding there. Now we know that they have implemented something like that in reviews. If you create a new business and you in a distress category, your reviews are much more likely to be filtered for the first 6 or 9 months of your existence more aggressively than if you'd opened a bricks and mortar shop where they can vet the reality a little better.
And I suppose that is you know, that's a little bit of a challenge for a new business in a sense. If
Absolutely.
I am a legitimate plumber, I just got my contractor's license, I just finished my apprenticeship, I'm really excited about the plumbing work that I've done. I'm going to become a plumber and hang my shingle, and all of a sudden, I'm getting business, but none of my reviews are getting published. That would be really annoying.
It would be very annoying. And I would say to that plumber, you should look at Google as gravy on the top of the potatoes, but you should make your own potatoes. That realistically, Google is not a trustworthy business partner. And while they can generate leads for you, and I would encourage you to do well there, I think you need a system that functions outside of large oligopic control. And for me, that's text and email, where with every customer, you get their email address, you follow up with them periodically just to let them know you're still alive with a nice newsletter. Maybe you have some openings in your schedule because it's fall and people aren't, whatever. You let your customers know so that you can build a customer generation, business generation system that exists outside of Google. And then, you're asking these same customers for reviews. So you do well on Google because over that 9 months, 10 months later, when you start asking, getting more reviews, you do well. Where Google then becomes just complementary
Mm-hmm.
to a system that doesn't need Google to exist. You can't predicate the success or failure of your business on a large, untrustworthy partner.
Yeah, because you don't know if they're going to change. Think of all we were talking SEO earlier.
Yeah,
If you're
you're a good example. You don't know when they're going to change and
if
well,
the algorithm changes, if you live by the algorithm, you potentially die by the algorithm. And
exactly.
whether it's Google or
That's
Bing or
exactly
any,
right.
if 90% of your business comes from Yelp and Yelp changes their algorithm, then you're at risk of
There are no silver bullets. It's hard to build a business, but people want real, authentic experiences where it's not just operationally efficient, it's operationally pleasant, right? Where
yeah.
every time you touch a customer, they experience joy, or at least they don't experience pain. That's how the type of operation a business needs to run to succeed in today's world, so that the person to person reality is positive, and that will then be reflected on the internet over time, rather than trying to reflect a false impression of your business immediately on the internet and then and not servicing those people with uh, with a kind of like I think about people coming to my house, and all too frequently they traipse through my laundry room, they go down to the basement to fix it, and they leave a trail of mud through the laundry room. It's like, okay, they did a great job fixing it, but they didn't have to leave that mud. They could have put booties on, they could have put a carpet down. There's a million things they could have done. So I think every business needs to explore every point they interact with a client and make sure that it's at the highest level of operational effectiveness it can be. So it's not just cost effective for you, but pleasant for the client. And then over time, you build that into your systems. Every new person gets trained in that, and you can see that then reflected in your reviews.
Yeah, there was a an air conditioning company that I was dealing with, and we had air conditioning nightmare, and one company just couldn't solve the problem. We ended up calling another company, and like the customer service experience and the professionalism of the companies were very much night and day.
Right.
The second company was, like with any service business, we're going to give you a window for the arrival because we don't know how long any other job is going to take, so we might get early, we get this 2 hour 2 3 hour window that the day of the appointment, they texted and said, just a reminder that we'll have a tech out in this window, and we will let you know when they're on the way. And so later on in the day, I get a text message, and it's hey, Bob is on his way. He's just finished his last job. He'll be there within a half an hour. Uh, and here's a picture of Bob.
Right.
That way you know
So
who he look what Bob looks
exactly.
like.
So that's what I call operational excellence, at least in the pre-sale segment, right? And you have to realize that a complete customer interaction starts with maybe with Google. So you have to show the same picture of Bob on
Yeah,
the website. It starts with Google and the reviews there, but it also then this from how they handled your call, how they got you the quote, how they get the person to your house. And then what happens when they're there? Do they solve the problem efficiently? Is the bill consistent with what
yeah,
they've said? And do they not leave a muddy track in your laundry room? And then post sale, do they treat you with respect and kindness and don't punish you if you don't leave a review,
yeah,
whatever, or don't harangue you to leave a review, but maybe politely ask. So there's this whole cycle. And then you then move into their marketing cycle with some amount of acceptance and joy. They send you a nice newsletter about how you need to clean the filter on your furnace in a timely fashion. You forgot to clean it this fall. You better get down there and clean the filter, replace it, those kinds of things. And then that gives you a business trusted avenue into that customer forever.
yeah. And it's challenging because I think you can have situations where company, let's say that they're not AI generated reviews, they're real review, they are feel real reviews from real customers, but the customers have gotten them put them under duress. There was a moving company
Right.
that I had used, and part of the reason why I chose them was like, oh my goodness, they have a ton of reviews. And they came out, they did their job. Didn't do anything crazy. Everything went perfectly well. But at the end, the hey, I need you. I'm afraid that if I don't get a good review, I might lose my job. Can you? I need you to leave a positive review and mention, and mention me and the other guys on the team. And I really need you to do that. Like the pressure to leave a review was crazy. And I was like, oh, now I know why you had so many reviews because
Right.
the pressure. And so all the reviews were legitimate customers, but
Not legitimate reviews
oh,
and that they were under duress.
correct that they were
And
not
and that is
willingly
now
left.
against FTC guidelines and Google guidelines. But Google can't always tell.
Yeah,
They are now punishing if you one of these distressed industries, you get a lot of reviews with employee names, those reviews will be taken down. But a lot of small businesses don't even realize that not only is pressure against guidelines and against the law, incentives are against guidelines and against the law if the incentive isn't mentioned in the review. So if I'm doing a review and I'm publishing on my website, I can give you an incentive to leave that review, or I can give you an incentive to give me your email so I can contact you for the review. But if I'm getting a review at Google, I can't incentivize that within the constraints of the law. And most small businesses don't realize it. They
yeah,
think, oh, it's okay. It isn't, because it creates this unfair reality. And you also, likewise, you can't, it's against the law to ask your wife and family members and management partners to leave you a review as
yeah.
well.
Yep. Don't review your own business.
Exactly.
Although very much I see that with restaurant openings, there's always the soft opening. We invite all the people that leave really good reviews for restaurants when we have a soft opening.
Right. Yes.
So
Yeah.
so I feel bad for like the consumer is really kind of left like you live and breathe this stuff and seeing this. The consumer is gleefully unaware of all this stuff when it comes to business listings. Other than verifying it on multiple platforms, you know, is there? I assume if there was an easy way to spot these things, they would be suspicious. So clearly, the when they just say "Thanks for calling the plumber" instead of Joe's plumber. Are there any
So
other kind of
one way
telltale
an
signs?
AI does offer a possible solution to this in that you can now go into Ask Maps, which is Google's new Maps AI
Mm-hmm.
feature, or in AI overviews or AI mode, and you can say to it, compare the good and bad experiences that consumers have expressed about these three businesses, and it will then list out a summary of the negatives. And depending on your predilection, you can see what was negative about the experiences. So more easily, like in your moving company's case, I'm sure even though they had 3,000
Yeah.
reviews, there were probably 100 bad reviews in there. They didn't have much impact on the star rating. But if you looked at those reviews in aggregate, which is sort of hard to do manually because you got
Yeah.
to click in three clicks, but AI gives you a way to do that. You can say, summarize these and tell me what the negative opinions were of people and how do they, stack up against this company for those negative things. So you do have a little bit of an automated solution. You see this on um, Amazon, they're actually auto-generating some of these
Yeah.
negative review summaries. Google does to a lesser extent, and it's not always, but the AI can give you exactly what you're looking for. If let's say the first company you dealt with, if they consistently left
Yeah.
tracks across your uh, room, AI may have hints of that. You can find it. So pick out what's important to you. Ask AI if these companies experience that, or to summarize the negatives.
And I suppose in my moving company experience, if I had AI summaries, I'm sure there are multiple reviews that would have commented on, I got a lot of pressure to leave a review about it.
Yes,
And me
which
as a
should be a red
consumer,
flag.
that as a consumer would be like, oh, okay, the reason why there's so many reviews is because they're pestering and annoying people.
Right.
Okay, so there's something fishy with the reviews, so I really need to take the volume of reviews and the content of the reviews with a grain of salt.
Exactly.
That's kind of a neat way to look at it. I suppose if you're using AI, you could also say, I I only want to deal with companies that have been in business 3 years that have a brick and mortar location.
That don't have any reports of this problem, or this problem, but that have an expertise in this
Yeah,
area because I have a unique setup. I mean, AI allows you to ask these multifaceted queries and will then do what's called fan out queries, find the two or three or four businesses that meet that criteria. I mean, I think it's one of the good things about, Ask Maps and AI overviews that you can do these much more complicated comparisons. But you still have to realize that there's a lot of data in there
yeah.
that the AI may misinterpret because it's fake data, either through it was given under duress or maybe there were incentives paid. So just keep your eyes open.
Yeah, it's buyer beware, and typical with anything that's even scam related. You're in, when when the plumbing is broke, the air conditioner has broken, the front door lock is broken. We're in an emotional state, and so the chances of us being taken advantage of go up significantly because of that emotion.
Yeah, exactly.
And so, if Mike, if people want to learn more about you and what you do, where can they find you online?
Well, let's see. I am a product expert on Google My Business Forum. You can find me there, but I currently work at Near Media. Nearmedia.co. We have a free newsletter um, and for lawyers and a free newsletter for businesses around local. We have a weekly podcast. Those all can be subscribed to for free. And my email, I'm also on Twitter and LinkedIn, M Blumenthal, and or Mike Blumenthal on LinkedIn. And my email, I have an open email policy. So if you have a question about this topic or related topics, I'm available and we'll try to answer it. M Blumenthal at nearmedia.co. M Blumenthal at nearmedia.co. And I will try to answer your question.
And
I'm available.
what's the name of the podcast so we can include it?
Near memo.
Your memo. Awesome. We will make sure to include links to all those in the show notes. Mike, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today.
Well, it was a real pleasure. It's a pleasure meeting you and a pleasure being on your podcast.